Next week, October 10th, will be the official release date of Pincer: A Gentleman's War on Tabletop Simulator. So get ready, I've been working really hard on it to give you all the best experiences possible, and next week's video will give you all the details you need on how to access and play it. If you can't wait that long, become a channel member and get early access. In light of all this, I think it would be good to give a recap of all the rules and introduce these player cards so you'll be ready to hop in the action next week. Let's get started. If you're new here, my name is Julian, and on this channel I document my journey in creating the ultimate strategy board game, Pincer: A Gentleman's War. In this game you'll expand your empire by building colonies, managing resources, and most importantly, facing your opponents on the battlefield. Head over to my website, playpincer.com, where you can get alerted once playtesting becomes available. playpincer.com. I've had a few people recommend that I should create player cards, for lack of better words, similar to what they have in Catan. Basically a quick reference for all the cost and abilities of the pieces. I actually do already have them though, I've just never really talked about them on my channel. Not only do I have them, but I've gone through many versions over the past few years as I've tested out different rules. They started out simple, a quick reference to the cost of items, but I've slowly added more and more rules over time, for whenever I playtest with friends and family. They're pretty much a substitute rulebook at this point. I found that these are crucial in order to let players plan out their strategy in secret without having to constantly ask questions that could potentially give away their next move. They can just look at the reference card. It also helps to have the rules in stone, if you will, so whenever a discrepancy arises, you can point to it and say, see, I'm not just making this stuff up. Even though I am making it up technically, just not at that moment. One challenge I've faced is what information to place on the card. It's one thing to have a quick price chart, but when you start adding rules to it, it can be hard to decide how much detail is needed, especially with limited room. It's easy to clutter these things up with text, and then it becomes less efficient as a quick guide. So I've decided to put all the rules on them. Yes, that's right. I would like my whole game to fit on the front and back of this 5x7 card. Save one thing, the setup rules. I think that'll just be a simple sheet of cardstock that details the game's components and how to set the board up, sort of push players offshore to use their turn cards the rest of the game. I think this is the best way to go about it for now. One reason is it forces me to keep the game as simple as possible. If I can't fit the whole game on here, it might be getting too complex. That's why it's incredibly important to choose the words with the utmost precision and clarity. Every if, and, or but needs to be there for a reason, and should theoretically be able to determine if a move is against the rules or not. I'm sure I've overlooked some things, but I've done my best to think of every scenario and write these turn cards in a way that addresses them. So let's break it down. I recently redesigned the style of them to match the game more. As you know, Pincer is supposed to take place in the 18th century, and I think the current design doesn't really communicate that as well as I wanted, and also like that certain elegance I'm going for. I took a lot of inspiration from 18th century newspapers, and I'm pretty happy with the result. I think it's a lot cleaner looking now. The different sections or articles aren't really in any particular order, but I'd like to start with the phases at the bottom here. I've broken down a player's phase into 3 overarching phases, so when their turn starts they know exactly what to do. Phase 1, Harvest. Roll resource die. All players collect 1 resource card per colony if die matches adjacent tile, unless occupied by enemy unit. Phase 2, Mobilization. If desired, move any or all units by their respective limits to tile of choice, or make attacks on enemy units. Refer to combat in land and naval units. Phase 3, Development. Redeem resource cards to build infrastructure or place new units on the board. New units may not be used until next turn. So like I said, this is sort of the order of operations during your turn. Next, let's skip over to Victory. Once the board is completely colonized with no room for an additional colony, as they must be 3 tiles apart, a player may declare victory if they control 3/4 of the colonies on the board through building or annexing. Okay, so now players can keep in mind what their goal is and the way to achieve it, building or annexing. So let's go over annexing next. To annex an enemy colony, you must occupy the colony's tile. During this occupation, you may collect the resources rolled for the colony, but you may not build any land naval units from colony. If the colony has an existing port, you acquire the trade bonuses. If not, you may build a port in the same color as the colony. All bonuses from connected roads will be lost during this time for both players. You may also build a fort one turn after annexing in your own color. Once your unit no longer occupies the colony's tile, ownership is immediately transferred back to the original owner on their turn, at which point any fort built will be destroyed. So that's how you would go about annexing a colony and what the implications of that would be, but I hope I wrote that clearly enough. Next we have infrastructure, the cost and abilities. Colony must be built 3 tiles apart on a tile occupied by a friendly unit. Allows players to collect resources from adjacent tiles and to buy land units. May not be built on edge tiles of the board. Port must be built on a water tile adjacent to an existing colony. Allows players to purchase frigates and decreases exchange rate by 1 unless occupied by an enemy naval unit. 1 port a colony. Fort must be built around a colony. Protects colonies by forcing enemies to have either a cannon or a frigate plus 1 additional land unit immediately adjacent to the colony for a whole turn before attacking. Allows players to purchase cannons. Roads and bridges. Build along the edges of tiles to connect colonies. Each new colony connected reduces exchange rate by 1, and units may transfer between connected colonies in 1 move per turn. Must be built upon an existing colony or road. Bridges may be built on a water tile, 1 edge across. Must touch land on either side. Allows land units to cross between connected bridge tiles. Allows players to purchase cavalry. Okay, so that's an extremely condensed explanation of all the infrastructure, and as you can see, we have the cost here on the right side. Now let's move on to land and naval units. Land units may not enter into mountain tiles. Musketeer. Move, attack by 1 tile per turn. All new land naval units must be placed in an empty, friendly, unoccupied colony or port. Cavalry. Move, attack only by 2 tiles away per turn. May not move through enemy occupied tiles or mountain tiles to attack. New units must be placed in a colony connected to another by roads. Side note, this is a good example of being precise in the wording. Notice it says cavalry move, attack only by 2 tiles away per turn. This is intentional because they must only move by 2 tiles, not 1. When it says away, this is to indicate that they may not move 2 tiles but end up in their original starting tile. It must be away from their starting tile. Cannon. Move, attack by 1 tile per turn. May return immediately into original tile after attacking, before opponent's counter move. Must return to original tile after attacking naval units from land or sea. New cannons must be placed in a colony with a fort. Frigate. Move, attack only by 1 or 2 tiles per turn. May transport 1 of any land unit across water tiles. All land units must be immediately adjacent to the frigate to embark, but may move, attack by their respective ranges upon disembarking. All units being transported are lost upon naval defeat. New frigates must be placed in an empty, friendly, unoccupied port. Again, you see the prices listed here on the right. I think this section could use a little cleanup, specifically around where new units are placed. It might get a little wordy and redundant, but I think it's important to know where you place new units. Next we have combat. I think everyone knows how this works for the most part, but let me just read it. Players may move or attack all of their desired units on their turn. To attack, simply move your unit into your opponent's tile and remove their piece from the board. After attacking, your opponent will be able to make 1 immediate counter move or attack with any unit before your turn resumes. Opponent must use separate piece for each counterattack before reusing the same one, until the offensive player's turn ends. Exchange rate, pretty simple. 5-to-1, trade 5 of the same resource in for any of your choice. -1 for every port or new colony connected by a road. Limit 2-to-1. When I say new colony, there might be a better way to word that, but what I mean to say is the first colony doesn't count. Finally, we have maneuvers. I have a whole video on this you can check out, but I'll read them off. Maneuvers can be found on resource cards shuffled into the deck. If drawn, they may be played while attacking or defending, depending on the card, by a unit from a tile that corresponds with the maneuver's resource. Ambush. Play before attacking. Prevent your opponent from playing a counter card to your attack. Outflank. Play before moving or attacking. Take 1 extra move, attack with the same unit. Retreat. Play once attacked. Move your attacked unit into an empty tile by unit's range. Fortify. Play once attacked. Deflect enemy attack. Both players' units will remain in their original tiles. Encirclement. Play before moving or attacking. Take 2 consecutive moves or attacks with separate units. Skips opponent's counter move. While we're on maneuvers, one quick thing. Someone in the comments had mentioned adding some sort of espionage element to the game. I really like this idea, and I'm thinking about changing the encirclement maneuver to espionage, which would allow you to look at your opponent's hand. I think this could be a lot of fun. Plus, encirclement and outflanked are so similar, so this could help add more variety. Let me know if you like that idea in the comments. So I'm hoping that any question a player has can be found in these turn cards. If anything was confusing to you, let me know, because it can be hard to think from an outsider point of view what information is clear or unclear. I think that these turn cards will evolve quite a lot in the next few months based on your feedback playing the tabletop simulator. I also plan on making more versions with different victory conditions and maneuvers to test out, but I think this is a good starting point. Get ready though, because like I said, next week, October 10th, is the official release of the Tabletop Simulator. So mark your calendar or become a member to get early access this week. Thank you all so much for the support and for watching. Until next time, farewell.